Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 56, part 2, with the words Ella Kol Yado Mamashu. Rather, the Gemara rejects Rabba Bar Mamal's objection and concludes, every mention of the term his hand in the Torah is reference to his actual hand. And it is different there in the verse, and taken all his hand from his land, Numbers 21:26, where it cannot be said that the reference is to his actual hand. Rather, it means there in his possession. Rabbi Zera raises a dilemma with regard to rental. Is it subject to the halachot of exploitation, or is it not subject to the halachot of exploitation? The Gemara elaborates, it is an actual item that is sold, about which the Merciful One speaks, but not a rental. Or perhaps, is there no difference? Abaya said to him, it is written, if you sell an item that is sold forever, what is written is simply, and if you sell an item that is sold, and indeed for its day, the rental is considered a sale. The legal status of rental is that of a sale for a limited period. Consequently, it is subject to the halachot of exploitation. Rava raises a dilemma in a case involving wheat kernels, and one sowed them in the ground. What is the halacha? Are they subject to the halachot of exploitation, or are they not subject to the halachot of exploitation? The Gemara elaborates, is their legal status like that of kernels cast into a jug, and are they subject to the halachot of exploitation as they remain movable property, or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground, and like land, they are not subject to the halachot of exploitation. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If we say that the hired laborers said, I sowed 6 kav of grain in the field, and witnesses came and said that he sowed only 5 kav, but doesn't Rava himself say, with regard to any item that is otherwise subject to the halachot of exploitation, and it is sold by measure or by weight or by number, even if the disparity was less than the measure of exploitation in the transaction is reversed. A disparity of 1/6 between the value of an item and its price constitutes exploitation only in cases where there is room for error in assessing the value of an item. In a case where the sale item is easily quantifiable, any deviation from the designated quantity results in a nullification of the transaction, even if the wheat kernels are subordinate to the ground. Rather, it is a case where the hired laborer said, I cast kernels in the field as required, without quantifying the measure of the kernels that he cast, and it was discovered that he did not cast the kernels in the field as required. Are they subject to the halachot of exploitation, or are they not subject to the halachot of exploitation? Is the legal status of these kernels like that of kernels cast into a jug, and they are subject to the halachot of exploitation? Or perhaps the laborer subordinated them to the ground? Now, Rava raises an additional dilemma. If the laborer admitted to part of the claim, does he take an oath with regard to the kernels, or does he not take an oath with regard to the kernels? Is their legal status like that of kernels cast into a jug, and one takes an oath with regard to them, or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground, and one does not take an oath with regard to them, as the halacha is that one does not take an oath about a claim involving land. Rava raises an additional dilemma. Does the sacrifice of the Omer offering permit one to eat the produce grown from these kernels, or does the sacrifice of the Omer offering not permit one to eat the produce? The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances? If it is a case where the kernels took root, we already learned that halacha. If it is in a case where the kernels did not yet take root, we already learned that halacha also. As we learned in a Mishnah, Menachos 70a. If crops took root before the sacrifice of the Omer offering, the Omer offering renders it permitted to eat them. And if not, if they took root only after the sacrifice of the Omer offering, it is prohibited to eat them until the time for the sacrifice of the next Omer offering will arrive. No, Rava's dilemma is not superfluous, as it is necessary to raise it in the case where one reaped grain and sowed its kernels prior to the time of the Omer offering, and the time of the Omer offering arrived and passed while they were in the ground, and the kernels did not take root before the sacrifice of the Omer offering.